Hello and welcome to another episode of DCU Daily. We are back live, and of course, we have lots to talk about as always. Thank you for joining us. And if you're watching us for the first time, I am Daniel, of course, and we have to talk about today Lanterns, the Authority. We're gonna get into a lot of stuff that James Gunn has been talking about regarding maybe there's some new projects that have been greenlit, but we don't know about them just yet. We'll talk about that. There's a video game idea he has in mind, so a lot of teases as per usual from the co-CEO of DC Studios. And then beyond that, we have to review Superman and Lois, episode 9, the penultimate episode. It brought back a famous Superman rogue, and he looks a little different, and maybe, it gives us an idea of where the series is going to go in the finale. John's going to review the show, and we're then going to bring in your comments. You guys had a bunch of comments on our last video that we wanted to address, including for the Batman 2, which is, of course, another thing that we have to talk about today. So it's going to be a packed show, so stick around. And to do all of that and so much more, as always, with me, I've got John. How are you doing today?
Unlike Lex Luthor, I still have my beard, and it's luxurious and wonderful. Shouldn't have shaved it. The man who shaves his beard for a woman deserves neither. 'Tis a shame, but, Cudlets was good in this episode, but
Well,
we'll get there when we get there.
yeah. I was just going to say, it's probably more a matter of, um, if, well, you know what? I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole right now. Let's just continue the conversation, as you said. We have already got Michael in the chat. We have got Hugo Millie in the chat. Hello. Hope you guys saw the video earlier. We know that a couple of you guys did because you have comments from you to talk about. But before we get into those comments, we have to get into some other comments. Starting off, grain of salt comment here. It came from one of the scoopers on the internet. Let me click into the graphic here for a second. Apocalyptic Horseman, which is quite frankly the best named scooper out there. But as far as his track record goes, it's mixed, and a lot of the stuff he's predicted so far has not even come out yet. Now, having said that, um, he or she or it or whatever their pronouns are, they said that there's a pretty big time jump in Lanterns, and I'm not sure why, if it's halfway through the season or if they move the narrative back and forth. John, I want to get your opinion on this because time jumps in shows could imply multiple things. It could imply, snap of the finger, 5 years later, the Avengers are devastated and Thanos is retired. Or it could mean Back to the Future, like you literally, take a car and drive into the past. Or it could mean, Man of Steel, where you get to learn about who Clark Kent was growing up and how it's influenced him to become the person he is in the present day, in more flashbacks. So I wonder, I mean, we're gonna pretend here that this is actually true, and for the second, because again, big grain of salt, for all we know, this is absolutely no foundation in reality, because again, it's a scoop. It's not coming from a big trade outlet like a Deadline or a Variety. It's not coming from James Gunn. It's not coming from the showrunners like Damon Lindelof or Tom King or such. But nonetheless, let's pretend for a moment that this is true. What do you think this implies? Like, how do you think this will feature in the show Lanterns?
The only thing I can think of is two things. One, they'll pull a Man of Steel where they are going to go back and forth between Hal now and Hal when he first became a Green Lantern, either makeup or Uncanny Valley CGI on Kyle Chandler, one of the two. And they'll show him him trying to train John as a rookie, and then but him remembering when he was a rookie being trained by maybe Sinestro to tease something in the future, or just him training. What they probably won't include Sinestro because that's a big thing to have, and they probably don't want to tease people too much. But I can imagine that they want to do they want to do back and forth between Hal Jordan origin and Hal Jordan now. I could see that. I could also see that maybe the first one or two episodes, that they have Hal training a supremely rookie John, and he just got the ring, and then it jumps a year or two later where he's he's a good lantern, still has a lot to learn, but he's that's the thing now with superheroes is it's Not year one. It's not an origin. It's year two. See, that's so different. It's like it's not, but you just pretend that it is. It's fine. So he'll be like a year two Green Lantern, and he'll still have like a shit ton of to learn, but he'll still like not be like a total fucking idiot and not know how this shit works. So I could see either of those. I would probably want the latter because it's more so focusing on John Stewart, and that's what I would imagine they do because it feels like they're setting this is going to be John's show. They're going to set him up to take the torch and go and move on and be the real like Green Lantern of Sector 2814 while Hal either retires, becomes Parallax, or dies. I hope not the latter two, but with with this series and how old he is, who knows? I hope that's not the case, but I can see that happening. But considering how much focus they're putting on John this series, it seems like they're gonna, they're
Well,
gonna they're gonna they're gonna make it more about him. And I feel like it's like, oh, we're gonna get a little bit of him like fumbling and fucking up, and then they're like, okay, this is gonna be boring after like 8 episodes, so let's get him as like a at least a kind of capable like guy, and then
yeah.
move on
Well,
to the real plot.
I see. I think that's one way to go about it, and it's very possible that they do it. I'm gonna pitch something that's a little more out there, but it is tied into like the log line, the synopsis of the show. But before I do, in the chat we've got Hugo Millie suggesting potentially that maybe it's a stranded situation. Like somebody, one of the two might have been stranded, or so like maybe that leads into a flashback sequence
Hmm.
or something like to that effect, like you sort of hinted at. Then Buster Barnes saying maybe flashbacks to when Hal and John first met versus now,
Possibly.
like them versus now. So maybe a couple of years time jump. So like you start off in a certain time and then you kind of jump ahead. Michael agrees with you, by the way, and your what you were saying. I will sort of offer up a different theory. Now we know that they've been pitching that, hey, these guys are investigating what turns out to be some kind of ancient horror, right? And we have talked
Hmm.
about maybe like it's this center or something like that. But whatever it is, I feel like when you say ancient horror, I want to take maybe it's
I
literal
think
in a way.
Lovecraft.
Like what I'm thinking is like we get to see like the origin of that horror. Like we get to see the past because the lanterns have existed, right, for a
A long
long
time.
time.
Right.
So this ancient horror might be just as old or older, or maybe the lanterns are older. So I feel like maybe that's what they might be talking about. Maybe time travel is involved in the show. It could be possible. I'm just suggesting. I think why not go bigger, right? They're lanterns, like they're cosmic. Like
Yeah.
why just do something that we have seen in so many TV shows before, like flashback to a character's past to kind of help flesh out that character and how
Right.
much we know about them, or to kind of just advance the plot. You could always jump ahead too. I mean, that's implied here that they will go back and forth. So maybe what they'll do is they'll have two narratives running in parallel. Maybe it's also possible
That might be a bit
that,
much for 8 episodes, though. But that is a good idea,
like,
though.
just
But
think
it
about it
might
for
be
a
a bit
moment.
much.
Exactly. Like so think I'm thinking like the Men in Black 3, right? That's the one where there's time travel, right? So the one where you get to see, you know, the Tommy Lee Jones K, and is it K? It's K, yeah. And then
Yeah.
Will Smith is J, and then you get to see the young Josh Brolin K, which by the way, Josh Brolin absolutely nails Tommy Lee Jones. Like
Oh
his
yeah.
impression of Tommy is just it's so on point to this day. It's still like I break
And
out
then,
laughing
ironically,
and
Josh Brolin being considered for Hal
yeah.
Jordan. It all
Hmm.
works. It all comes
It
full
all works
circle.
out. It all works out. I mean, I think he's holding out for a bigger role, quite frankly.
Yeah.
We got Miraculous in the chat joining us. Hello to Miraculous. Buster Barnes, of course, there too. I mentioned earlier what you said, but yeah, to me, I look at it and I think, okay, so it's possible that maybe we get to see in parallel, like Christopher Nolan style, a story from a young Hal Jordan play out, while we're then also seeing an older Hal Jordan, more jaded for whatever reason. Again, I'm thinking you could model this literally on the plot of Men in Black 3 in some ways, and then you have the younger John Stewart sort of like trying to figure out what's going on. Except that, of course, we wouldn't have spent two movies already with these characters. This would be the first
Right.
time we see them. So It's not an exact apples to apples comparison, but I'm just suggesting that could be a possibility.
Yeah.
And that
I
would be
don't
intriguing, you know?
I don't think they'll actually have time travel because time jump implies like just having a narrative and then jumping forward and then it stays with the time travel implies like it's part of the plot, like they use their rings
Right.
to go back in time type of thing. And I don't think they'll do that because it's a bit much. And I mean DC is no stranger to time jumps. I mean Young Justice infamously did that between seasons for better or for worse. And it just sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I feel like the way it makes sense is having it be like, as you said, a parallel, whatever the parallel is, it's maybe, John at the beginning and John where he is now.
Right.
He's more mature in regards to being a lantern, but not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Or it's like it's the parallel between, Hal Jordan becoming a Green Lantern and then John becoming a Green Lantern. So whatever they
Yeah.
do decide to do,
Well,
I think it'll be at the very least interesting if they do
mhm,
go in that. It's like, here's the thing, as we always say, it's probably not true. Apocalypse Horseman has never really stuck the landing in terms of his rumors, so
yeah.
it's probably not true. But in terms of a lot of the other
Yeah.
rumors that we were reading in regards to the show, like Kelly McDonald and
Hmm. Purna
Ella Hunt
Jagannathan. Right.
and
Yeah.
Porn. Yes, all the character of Zoe, they and all that, and taking place in a small
Yeah.
town, having a sheriff character. All of those were true.
Those
I don't know
those are
who
worked
did
out. Yeah.
those. I
Hmm.
don't know who stated those rumors, but all those turned out to be true because they were confirmed by, I think was it Tom King or Damon Lindelof that confirmed
I
the
think Tom King. Well,
Indian
Tom King
actress.
reposted a Variety post about it, so I guess
Right.
in turn confirming it.
Hmm.
The Purna casting for Zoe. Um,
Hmm.
Hugo Millie is kind of going there. Maybe like time jump has to do with the fact that you can't travel faster than light, and therefore when you look out into space, you're looking into the past essentially. Because the further you go out you look, like if you look 10 light years away, you're looking 10 years into the past as to whatever you're
Hmm.
looking at, a star or a galaxy. That's what it looked like 10 light years ago, 10 years ago, and it will take you 10 light years to get there. It. I mean, I don't know if they're gonna go that sci-fi, honestly. I mean, but Michael is excited, and Antonio's in the chat. Hello, Antonio. You left out a bunch of comments, and we really appreciate it. I think there was some really insightful stuff in there. Robert Pattinson going to the MCU. We will get into that, Antonio. We do have that coming up. um, Buster Barnes saying, I don't know, I thought Apocalyptic Horseman is pretty reliable, at least compared to your average scooper. Also, Gunn said there is one scooper who was 70. I don't think Gunn gave it a percentage. I think that 70. He said most of the time. We do have a quote from Gunn later, which kind of hints at the idea of like how reliable scoopers can be. I don't remember seeing a 70% number attached though, or maybe he said that before, and I bet you he was being facetious, but because you don't just do statistics on that, like unless he has done the math, which I doubt he
Right.
has. But anyway, as far as this rumor goes, I mean, if it is true, I look forward to it. I like the idea of time travel in a narrative as long as it's done right. And when I say done right, I mean you establish a set of rules and then you follow those rules. Like it needs to be self-consistent to the story you're trying to tell. Unlike in Avengers Endgame where they time travel and then they never really give you the proper rules, and if you follow the logic, there's like two or three different ways that they time travel in terms of how things work, and it's like, okay, so in one way it's the singular timeline, but then there's also the multiverse, so which is it? But anyway, I digress. Now we're gonna keep the ball rolling here, John. We have a lot more to get into. So the next story has to do with the Authority. This is coming from Murphy's Multiverse. This is another apocalyptic horseman rumor, or report, scoop, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And essentially it has to do with the Authorities franchise, which I mean, or I just want to just call them the team, the Authority. We don't really have a franchise with them yet, but we know James Gunn announced originally that it was going to be a live action movie. Now, according to Apocalyptic Horseman, DC Studios has decided to move forward with the Authority as an animated feature film, as you read here in Murphy's Multiverse. I quite frankly don't believe this, because I think
Yeah.
this movie has way too much potential and James Gunn loves these characters way too much for him to be like, oh, we're gonna do it as an animated feature. Because here's the thing, unless you're Pixar or maybe like your DreamWorks with like a franchise like Shrek, an animated movie that's based on a comic book is just not going to have the same potential at the box office, nor is it something that I think in this case maximizes like the true power and potential of this franchise, of this set of characters. I think it would be much more interesting, especially having seen the engineer and Superman, that we expand on that and then we add more to the cast and we get to see these characters live action. Because eventually they're going to cross paths with Superman. I'd much rather see David Cornsweet in the flesh than see him animated and voiced by David Cornsweet. That's my opinion, quite frankly. I think some people
Right.
might be like, this is great, I would love it. But there's also a stigma around animated comic book movies. I mean, again, the Spider-Verse movies have done a good job of sort of like, changing
Right.
like the and raising the bar and changing the expectations, but I still don't think that's the way to go. What do you think about this rumor? Do you think it's true? A, and then if it and then would you even want to see an animated version of this, or you want to stick with the live action one?
I don't think it's true. I don't think so because I mean it would kind of make sense though, but I don't think it's true because as you said, unless you're the Spider-Verse movies, unless, um you know, I just don't think that that's the case. I think because the only thing that's animated that's been confirmed for the DCU is Creature Commandos, and that's like an
Right.
appetizer for the DCU, not like a main course type of thing. So I don't. I think James Gunn wants to like push for animated stuff, but I think he
Yeah.
would want. I think he would do it with a more like safe character than the Authority. However, I will say this: I think I like there's the stigma of all the stuff like animated, and that's true. Like especially if considering that this is most likely going to be R-rated, I think it would be great to see an R-rated animated movie that took risks because I've seen pictures from the comics. It's it's fucking insane. Like the Authority comics are fucking crazy. They are like they deal with like fucking like alien shit. They deal with like
Mm-hmm.
fucking like different universe kind of stuff. Like they deal with like the most insane stuff of the well, initially it was the Wildstorm universe, but now it's the DC universe. So I think you could do more with animation in regards to the Authority because um it's just like with how crazy they are, how crazy the art is, all that. So I think it would be better as an animated film. However, I agree that I don't think this would happen because it would add more harm than good because it's like, oh, the Authority, what the fuck is that? Oh, it's
Yeah.
some animated thing. It's probably for kids. And because that's what the stigma is,
Yeah.
unfortunately. Oh, I'm not gonna watch this crap.
I mean,
That's
even
that's
yeah,
the unfortunate part because even
yeah,
with the Spider-Verse movies, yeah, they
exactly.
do more than the average like kid movie. Like it's still
Yeah.
made for all ages. Like it would be very very hard to sell and assume even if it was PG-13, but I'm gonna just assume that it's an R because it's a brutal team. They're like anti-heroes, so they're very brutal, and so I assume it's gonna be R-rated. It would be a very hard sell for an R-rated team that nobody's fucking heard of
It's
for an animated movie. It just wouldn't make sense,
yeah. Like I
and
think
I don't think
yeah.
James Gunn would do that.
It's a hard pill to swallow from a risk versus reward perspective for DC Studios and Warner Brothers. It's because they haven't established themselves. But like, here's the thing: the MCU has been able to take more risks in recent years because they have a reputation. They have established that trust with the audience, with the fans, and so the fans will go and see something because it's part of the MCU. The DCU is not that yet. The DC Studios brand is not that yet.
Exactly. They're
So
still in their
that's
infancy.
exactly, and even and like you made a really good point earlier when you said that it's not a well-known character or team where people would go flock to it because it the trailer looks great or something. Like even and you know what, Spider-Man is one of the most, if not the most popular comic book character in the world, and even the first Spider-Verse movie didn't make like a ton of money. And I remember that there were a lot of skeptical people out there. Even I was very like, I'm really not sure how good this will be. And the trailers looked amazing, like visually at least, and the story looked very heartfelt and it felt like it would be a good time in the movies. But you never knew it was going to be as good as it turned out to be. And I remember the word of mouth is what really helped that movie keep making money 3 months into its release. And then the second movie was a benefactor of that, and it made even more money than the first one did. So even with a character as popular as Spider-Man, like it was a risk. And even today, making a third, I mean, it takes time, it's expensive. It's not like animated movies at that scale with that level of quality are that much cheaper than doing something live action. Like if it costs you 150 to 200 million to make a Spider-Verse movie or like The Authority, why not just do it live action, right? Especially because some of the characters you've already cast. A lot of the characters, the supporting characters at least, even the engineer, and even if Superman shows up, like some of you guys are saying in the chat, those characters we already have in live action. And to me, they announced it as a live action movie. If they were pivoting, it's a big pivot, and it's something that I hope James Gunn has not been sitting on for a while. Like, let us know. And again, like, however reliable Apocalyptic Horseman is or isn't, I think John, you and I agree that this is something we would like to still prefer, at least, to continue to be a live action film. Now, with that said, John, let's continue to talk about a little bit more about James Gunn. And we're getting to the Batman story in a second, so this is kind of the preamble to that. James Gunn, of course, recently said, and we talked about this, I believe, an episode or two ago, so we have discussed this before, and he has mentioned this on multiple occasions. He said it pretty, clearly,
Frequently.
yeah, but he said it very firmly and very clearly when they announced the slate of DC projects a year and a half ago, and then he has said it multiple times since, and now he said it again where he said, look, the DC release schedule and the DCU won't be like the MCU or Marvel's approach because nothing is greenlit before we have a finished script. Somebody like in the chat was like, well, you announced a bunch of stuff, and now like you're greenlighting, then Lanterns was greenlit like a long time after it was officially announced. There's nuances to it. Marvel doesn't just make announcements of things that are already greenlit with no scripts, right? Like it's like the Blade, when they made the announcement for Blade, it wasn't like they said the movie is greenlit. They were saying like, we're working on it obviously, but they had cast Mahershala Ali and they put him out there, which I think was a mistake in hindsight, but
Yeah.
that movie still isn't greenlit. However, I will say this though.
But they
James
announce it.
They
Here's the thing.
did.
They announce the release date. That's the problem.
Right, that's the one thing, but also then James Gunn I think is more specifically referring to the idea that they did all that without having a finished script, which is the key point that he's trying to make. I think people sort of skip ahead because it's like a Marvel versus DC argument, but like the finished script is like the key thing that James Gunn, like Steve G was saying the same thing about Waller the other day. Now, having said that, of course, this leads us into the story about Matt Reeves and the Batman situation. So let's talk about that. Of course, if you clicked on the thumbnail, this is what you're here to talk about, or or certainly listen to us talking about it, whichever. But get your comments down in the chat below, and if you're not watching us live, of course, get in the comment section and let us know what you think, because after James Gunn made the comment that it's not true that Matt Reeves has finished the script, because people were assuming, based on what Matt Reeves has recently been saying, that the script is done. And maybe from Matt Reeves' perspective, it's done, but certainly from James Gunn's side, it's not, because he said it's not true. We are still eagerly awaiting his script. If it was canceled, as in the Batman 2, it would be canceled. Who has the time for charades? I've been one of Matt's biggest cheerleaders for years. We are eagerly awaiting his script. So he pretty much doubled down on his own statement, saying, "Hey, look, until the script is ready, it's not greenlit. But that doesn't mean the thing is canceled. Matt Reeves just hasn't turned the script in. So
I like
we're
the
still waiting
comment
for
too
it."
from
Yeah.
Richard. He pretty much put it into perspective because
Yeah.
like Dune Messiah is going through the same shit. Josh Brolin again, bringing up Josh Brolin again. He said, I was supposed to get the script weeks ago, but I haven't gotten it. Nobody said a goddamn word. There wasn't a trillion different fucking nerds behind their video essays and like, oh my god, the movie isn't happening. It's gonna be this, it's gonna be that. It's just like the thing is, I'm just confused as like, where is it? Like, because at least with Dune Part 2, like them not having a script now makes more sense because Dune Part 2 came out this year, not 2 years ago, like the Batman. So the thing is, I understand people's like annoyance a bit. Like both of us have said many times, like we're a little bit annoyed. It's like, dude, like why haven't you gotten the script ready? It's just like, what have you been doing for 2 years? However, I'm not gonna like just immediately jump the gun, no pun intended, that the movie is definitely not happening. It's definitely not happening. It's not happening because it's like there's no script. It's just like the movie isn't coming out for another 2 years. Yeah, 2 years have passed, but it's coming out 4 years after the first one, which is a bit much. But
It's
like,
actually more than 4 years. It's
no,
like four and
technically
a
more than
half
4 years because
years.
it came out in
Yeah,
March. It's like technically 4.5 years.
yeah,
But it's just like on the matter of like it's just like the people. You have the Snyder cultists, and then you have the Marvel fans just jumping on anything to see this DCU fail. That's essentially
right.
what it is. You have all these people that just want to see this shit fail, just want to see Gunn fail, want to see anything in regards to DC Studios fail, because now technically the Batman is under this DC Studios banner, because everything, as Gunn said I think
Yeah,
many moons ago, that everything is going to be under, even Elseworld stuff. So we know that.
right.
So Batman Part 2 is under DC Studios. So it's just all these people that are just making rage bait and clickbait and all this other shit, and it's just tiring, because James Gunn is just gonna say this until he's fucking red in the face of it's fucking happening, whether you fucking believe it or not. You can not believe it, fine, but then you're a fucking idiot, because the guy who's literally in charge of the fucking company is like, yeah, it's still happening. Shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
I understand. People are upset. People are annoyed with Matt Reeves taking so
yeah,
goddamn long. I understand that, but don't just start a 50 million rumors that the movie isn't happening
yeah,
just because you're personally annoyed. That's fucking stupid.
right. And look, like the thumbnail today was, intentionally a little clickbaity because it's worth talking about. And I want to address the aspect of this conversation we haven't discussed before, because I think I want to drill down a little bit more, because now we're getting into a little bit of a crunch time. And I know you said that it's 2 years away practically, right? We are in November of 2024. The movie is scheduled for October 2026. Speaking, which we will discuss in more detail later in the show as well. But for a movie of this scale, I remember the first movie kind of went in, like they had the script ready and pretty much done to go into production in like some point in late 2020 or so. And then, of course there was a pandemic and stuff, but they started filming. It took them 3 to 4 months to film, I believe. And then, post production, and but I think it was what, March of 2022 that the movie came out, if I remember
Mm-hmm.
correctly.
Yep.
So the production timeline for a movie like this, and maybe the second movie is bigger in scope and so it takes longer potentially, but even if it is the same amount of time, you need like a good year and a half, so to not rush things in any aspect, the VFX, the writing. um and I do also understand that Matt Reeves couldn't write the movie while the writer's strike was happening last year,
Yes.
and that affected things. I get that, but it's also like we're practically at the end of this year. Their strikes ended before last year ended, so starting in 2024, from January 1st on, pretty much he has had pretty much a whole year to work on this, and it's not like he was show running the Penguin. So I'm like, what, how many other things, things does he have that, how many, what's the term, like, how many other projects does he have going on? But
Right.
having said that, I do wonder how this affects everybody else that's involved with this, because we keep getting things like Jeffrey Wright talking about he hasn't seen a script yet. Zoe Kravitz is like, I have no idea. We know that Matt Reeves. Everybody just keeps saying Matt Reeves is working on it. He's working on it, and so it is.
And there's only
And
so
it's
much of that we could take.
exactly. And he's hinted at it multiple times that the thing is pretty much ready to go. And yet when we get something that feels contradictory from James Gunn saying, no, we have not received the script, I wonder if that means that, from Matt Reeves' side, he's worked on it, he feels like it's complete, but he just hasn't shared it, or like I'm like, where is the disconnect? I mean, it's one thing that you don't have a green light, but I mean, James Gunn is saying he's awaiting the script. So there is that. Now that of
Yeah.
course leads us into the conversation about Robert Pattinson, because
Yeah.
as an
Also, I did want
actor,
to quickly state
yeah,
something, because Antonio was a little upset, and I
yeah,
wanted to clarify, Antonio. When I talk about Snyder cultists, I'm not talking about Snyder fans. Snyder fans and Snyder cultists are two groups. Snyder fans are people who like Snyder's movies, who are willing to fucking have a conversation about them. Snyder cultists are people that bully and insult and reply to James Gunn's serious posts about how much of an asshole he is, uh, those that's there's two different groups. You're a Snyder fan. You can have can have a discussion. You're not a hateful little troll who just wants to fucking watch the world burn. I know that because we've gotten many comments from you showing your intelligence, which is something that Snyder cultists
Okay.
also do not have. But and
Yeah.
on top of the fact, it's Snyder cultists are a small, extreme group of trolls. That's what they are. They love these movies and then they hate everything else. That's their job. Their job is to just
It's a
hate
very,
everything.
very small yet vocal minority.
Very, very
And
vocal, unfortunately. But
yeah,
Snyder fans, I know people that are like, hey, I like Man of Steel. I like BVS. I like Zack Snyder's
I'm
Justice
one of
League.
those people.
And exactly.
I'm one of those
Like,
people.
well, I mean, outside of Dan, but I mean, like other people I've
Yes.
talked to, they're like, yeah, I like his movies, but I'm not gonna hate on somebody just because they don't like them, or they'll be like, I'm curious what the new DCU will be about, or they could be like, I don't like James Gunn, so I'm just not gonna watch it. I like the Zack Snyder stuff, so I'm gonna stick with that. But if you like it, you do you. You that's cool with me. So, um, yeah, so I just wanted to reiterate that, like, when I talk about I will always reiterate this because I don't wanna have Snyder fans coming in here and thinking I'm insulting them. Snyder fans are cool with me. Snyder cultists are assholes because 'cause they're not fans, they're just balls of toxicity and hate that
Right.
should be dumped into a river.
Fair. Well, I'm not gonna comment on that because I feel like like I think you've said as enough and as much for everybody here. But with that being said, I again I'm trying to figure out a few other things here. Like I mentioned, there's actors and obviously even behind the scenes, all the crew members who have projects lined up. This movie has a release date that already got moved back by a year, and we do have a release date that got moved. And the current release date was put out there earlier this year. It's been a long time since they moved that release date, and it gave them an extra year essentially to get this movie made. Now, of course, we still have a long time to go. However, Robert Pattinson's not gonna sit on his butt not worrying about other projects. He signed on for that Christopher Nolan. I feel like he's in that next Christopher Nolan movie, right? Like I feel like everybody's in that movie. Am I wrong about that? Um,
Tom Holland,
Tom Holland's in
Zendaya,
it. Okay.
Matt
Somebody let me
Damon,
know. I feel like he's. I mean, he's obviously got the Mickey
Robert
17 coming out,
Pattinson.
which he'll be
I
promoting.
think Charlize Theron is the newest name in Christopher Nolan's newest movie.
And he's got a movie called Die My Love coming out next year. He did join the Christopher Nolan movie, which is filming next year. Now, of course, he's not the only one. I'm sure other actors are, but the big news or rumor out there happens to be this week that and we kind of touched upon this the other day. We just didn't know who he might have been in discussions about, the character that he potentially could play. It looks like when he was talking to Marvel, again, take it with a grain of salt, that he might be talking about playing Molecule Man. Owen Reese is, being the alter ego of that character. Now, I wonder, like, if this is what effect this has on his commitment to the role of Batman. He has a multi-picture deal with Warner Brothers. I feel like if the script isn't done and the project isn't greenlit, they haven't given him dates because they don't have that figured out, and therefore we don't quite know what the timeline of that project is going to look like. Now, with that in mind, I imagine Robert Pattinson is free enough, like, to go take other commitments. And
Yeah.
so I do wonder, like, I mean, yes, the Watcher's saying, it's most likely a one and done. It could be. I have thought about that. But can you imagine if he goes on and takes on a project with Marvel? And Marvel usually, the one thing about Marvel is that they will, when they have a project that's dated, they like the Fantastic Four just finished filming, and it started filming the day Superman finished filming. So they have a machine that sometimes it turns out good stuff, sometimes it doesn't. But nonetheless, like, if you sign on for a project, you kind of know what you're in for. Like, it's rare that you have the commercial, despite the fact that we have had the Blade situation. It's not very common, right? So it does worry me a little bit that if Robert Pattinson, the Batman, takes on a role with Marvel, which gets ties up his schedule in addition to other projects he's got, where does that leave him with regard to the Batman, especially even like that Christopher Nolan movie that he signed up for is filming next year. You'd imagine the Batman also films next year. There's only like maybe 3 or 4 movies an actor can film in one year, especially if you're in a starring role, because you might be tied up for 3 to 4 months, and then you
Mhm.
just it's a matter of doing the math, right? And so let me ask you this: it's a multifaceted question. A, do you think this is true?
No,
And would you like to see something of this effect? And then B,
no.
if something like this does happen, then how does it affect his commitment to the character of the Batman?
I don't think this is happening. I just think it's kind of following with what we were saying before. I think it's just some douchebag starting a rumor like, "Oh, Batman's taking forever. Well, Robert Pattinson's gonna fucking go to Marvel," even though like he has said many times in the past he's like a more like I feel like he's a classier and more regal like actor now,
Yeah.
and I don't think he would like fucking denigrate himself by going to fucking Marvel. Like that's not the vibe I get from Robert
Hmm.
Pattinson. Now, I could be wrong because money talks, but like I just don't get that feeling from him. And if that's like the case, like why in the ever loving fuck of fuckdom would you go from Batman to fucking Molecule, man? At least go for like
It's
something Batman level. Why go for fucking something like this bullshit? Like that's no. I don't think this is true. As we said, Fantastic Four just finished filming. The only way I could see this coming up is if it's a Secret Wars thing and they're bringing the Fantastic Four into there and they're combining the universes and all that shit. I just think this is bullshit. Like I don't think this is happening. Like I'm like 99% sure this is not happening. There's still that 1%. But it's just like this just seemed like I don't even know who the scooper is. Holyfield M5. I've never even heard of him.
well,
I
this has come from multiple supposed sources. But what I will say
supposed.
is, it could be something very simple that is getting blown out of proportion, right? Like maybe they had a discussion of some kind, and somebody in Robert Pattinson's circle sort of like said something to somebody, and it's sort of like fault that the game of telephone happened, and then we are seeing this as a result of that. So again, it could be really far away from the truth. It could be that they actually did have a conversation, Kevin Feige and Robert Pattinson, and it's one where there's mutual interest, and yet I think while having a multi-picture deal where to play the Batman is ties you up so that if DC and Warner Brothers wants you for another movie, you're obligated to then come over and do it. If you do get tied up with another project, though, like, and you have dates, it's not like you can walk away from that film just to be like, oh yes, I have a pre-existing, like, the contracts will take care of that stuff. Now, this is just one, means to talk about the potential problem, because I do wonder if the delays with the Batman production schedule, even if it has a rough, production schedule already. Which again, look, here's the thing: if you go off James Gunn's logic, taking a step back, if the script isn't done, the project isn't greenlit, so maybe the money isn't allocated, and therefore they're not doing any pre-production work, and therefore there are no production dates. They probably haven't scouted all the locations, even if they're going to reuse some sets from the first movie. I'm thinking if you go off of the logic that Gunn seems to keep applying here or wants us to believe, then the movie doesn't exist until the script is done. Like the project won't. There's nothing happening beyond Matt Reeves actually working on the script at this point in time. So therefore, like these actors can take on other projects, and Robert Pattinson is in demand. I mean, if not Marvel, then I'm sure he like the Christopher Nolan movie is an example, right? Like, and then he could sign up for something else. Can you imagine if his schedule fills up? I know he probably has a few dates that that are maybe like certain times of the year where he's like, let's put a hold there for us because like the Batman 2 might be filming at that time. And it might make sense that this movie films later in the year because it's taking place in winter anyway, so it makes it easier if they have a lot of exterior scenes where they want to shoot in an actual city. It would be easier to not have to fake it. But again, usually in movies you want to control the environment, so that shouldn't affect it too much. And yet Christopher Nolan did film a lot of the Dark Knight Rises, the second half, the third act of the movie, during the winter time. And even though the snow was fake, it was cold out, so that people were dressed in warm clothes. So there is a practicality to the idea that they might be filming in the latter half of the year. Now, the question still remains, though. Do you think that if the delays continue, that these other actors might move on. Like for example, I know that Mark Strong came into the role of Falcone, Carmine Falcone, because John Turturro didn't want to come back. But there have been instances like in The Flash, the actor that played his dad in Justice League didn't come back
Yeah,
because
Billy Crudup.
he Billy Crudup, went into the morning show, which he won an Emmy for. I think he made the right choice in the end of the day, associated with the morning show and getting an Emmy versus the Flash. But that kind of thing happens, and so I do wonder if like maybe, for example, Matt Reeves writes a role for Catwoman to come back, and then Zoe Kravitz takes on other projects and scheduling conflicts, and therefore now Catwoman gets written out, and then maybe as a result of that, we don't get hyped up for a potential Catwoman spin-off TV show. Like I'm just thinking, like at some point the dots do connect. So what are your thoughts on that? Do you think there is a risk here that this kind of approach? These guys are free, all these actors and people, talent even behind the camera. Like Greg Fraser is gonna be working on Dune 2, for example, and then he's
Right.
also potentially gonna be working on the Batman 2, and both of those movies have similar release calendars or timelines. So now, like if this movie starts filming around the same time that Dune 2 does, then the Batman 2 needs a different cinematographer, right? Like so I'm saying there's legitimate concerns here. Um, what are you like? Do you think any of that is actually gonna
Yeah,
happen? Is
that
possible? Like what?
definitely is like that's the con of like
Yeah.
this whole idea is they're just sitting around waiting for God knows what. That's kind of the big problem with the Orville right now.
Mm-hmm.
Is the Orville like is essentially in a state of limbo where they haven't been renewed, but they haven't been canceled. So all these actors are just waiting around for this shit to happen, and like, is it going to happen to the point where I think Adrian Palicki was like, "Yeah, the fucking show's canceled because I need to fucking work. I need to
Mm-hmm.
move on to other projects." But then, you know, Seth MacFarlane was like, "Well, it's not actually canceled. It's just kind of, but it's like essentially done because it's
Mm-hmm.
like where like it's been like 3 4 years since the last season, I think.
It's
So it's
just
like
at this point, right? Like it's hard to
I
see how
like
they're gonna. Yeah.
it's just like at this point it just say it's ended, which is a shame because it's such an amazing
Yeah.
show, and they finally hit their stride, and it's just like, oh, it ended because I don't know, like
It
Disney
was
doesn't
also the
fucking
Hulu
care.
transition hurt it, I think. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and so I think, yeah, that is the big like negative of like, oh yeah, we're gonna wait till we get a script to make it greenlit. That means the actors have to wait, the cast, the rest of the crew has to wait, and it's just like we're waiting, and not everyone can be like Brad Pitt, who can sit on their piles of money, like with like fucking a whore on either side of them, and just enjoy life to the fullest, and just like do whatever the fuck they want. Most like 99% of actors have to actually work as a job because they're broke and they need to, take shit to live, and so they can't afford to just fucking wait around. Now, is Robert Pattinson one of those people? I don't think so. I don't know what his net worth is, but I know he's not exactly like hounding for money, especially not Disney Marvel money. Um, so, but there is like, you know, I don't know who's like the fucking guy, the police officer number 3, who could show up here is like that dude needs to fucking work, and he's like, I
Well,
can't wait around.
yeah, but I mean,
So
but that's not really what's gonna have. I mean, I think more so it's the bigger names, right? Like, but like for example, Buster Barnes mentioning Colin Farrell. I will point out though the idea that Colin Farrell has signed on for 3 movies, which I believe is similar to the commitment Robert Pattinson has made. It's not. It's what I'm not saying is that it's the actor. Like here's the thing: the way these contracts usually work, even Marvel, DC, whichever way you want to go, franchise stuff in general. When you sign a multi-picture deal, I think it was pretty public with Elizabeth Olsen, and she kind of mentioned it that she had a multi-picture deal with Marvel to play Scarlet Witch, and
mhm.
she did all of her appearances. However, she said this that while the deal was active and she had appearances left on her contract, the way it was structured, if Marvel told her like we need you in this movie, she couldn't do another movie at the same time, right? It's similar to the situation why it's like there's clauses like that. Hence, Henry Cavill couldn't shave his mustache, and then we had the whole for Justice League
Yeah.
2017. Now, of course, that's one element of it. Like so, you get priority, and like in the contract it says, look, You're welcome to do any other projects, but if you're making the movie, then you have to prioritize that. But if you sign on to a movie and you get a production schedule and it's dated and you're gonna like to for release and you're gonna start working on it soon, Matt Reeves and Warner Brothers can't just walk in and be like, "Oh, we need Robert Pattinson. Sorry, your movie's screwed." Like I think it doesn't extend that far. And then also when
Yeah.
you sign a multi-picture deal, like for example, I think Andrew Garfield signed on for more than two Spider-Man movies. He only got to be in two of them
Yeah.
because I mean up until No Way Home, like but that's separate, right? Um, it was it wasn't like he was like, well, where's my third movie? Like it's not like a sports contract where you get guaranteed money. It's like it's more of an option on the part of the studio. The studio could choose to use that third appearance on your contract, or they don't. Like they could just be like, we're done with the Penguin. Like in Colin Farrell, thank you very much for all your hard work. Um, and the same could be true. Now, with that said, of course, like I said, the problem exists that if they do sit on this for too long, like, and it's also, not just the scheduling thing, it's also Robert Pattinson's getting older. Like, this guy will be 4.5 years older than he was when he made the first movie.
Yeah,
And
he's gonna
yet the
be
second
40.
movie,
He's gonna be in his 40s
yeah,
when
and then the
this movie
second
comes
movie
out.
starts literally like, what, a month after the first movie ends. So I'm like, I mean, it's not like he's aging terribly
It's not
badly.
like a
He doesn't
kid where
look
he's
it.
going from 8 to 12 and you can see the difference. It's
Yes.
not like the Stranger Things kids who are gonna look like they're fucking
Yeah.
like even though they were, originally actually the age of high schoolers, and now they're gonna look like the 80s stereotype of high schoolers of 30-year-olds playing high schoolers in season 5. So, like that's what it's gonna be now because that's what happens. They hit puberty, they get old, they growth spurts, their voices
Yeah.
drop, they, acne and all this other shit. I mean, we all remember that those, PTSD years whenever we look back. But that's just what it is. So like that, at least it's not that. At least it's like Robert Pattinson. Yeah, he was 36 when the first one came out. And you know what? He still looks he looks 30, like he was 36, he's 40, he's gonna be 40, and that's not much of a difference. Maybe a few more wrinkles, but like,
Right.
touch it up with makeup. But it's not a huge leap. So I think
Yeah.
people need to calm down a bit.
But the Watcher also making a good point about that, how this movie goes about meeting its release
That's
date
fair.
could have an effect on, because you're not going to put out two Batman movies in the same year. So if this movie gets moved from 2026 to 2027, what does that do to Brave and the Bold? Does that move up? Does that move back? How does that affect the larger DCU? I think at some point, again, we're not implying that Matt Reeves is moving any slower than he should, but it's starting to get to that point where we're like wondering, really, is 2026 going to be a reasonable time frame for us to expect the movie to come out? And if it doesn't, then it will have a consequences on other movies that in the larger DC Studios umbrella, including the other Batman movie that they're working on. So, but with that said, I mean, I think this is a good place to leave the conversation for now. Actually, to circle back to James Gunn for a second, though, because you've been talking about scoopers. There's like Den of Nerds, or like Grace Randolph, or My Time to Shine, or Apocalyptic Horseman. There's a lot of people out there who claim to have inside information, and sometimes it pans out, sometimes it doesn't. And James, I mean, we have mentioned this before in terms of who we trust as our sources when we report things versus when we tell you to take it with a grain of salt. And James Gunn, I think, did a pretty good job here of sort of summarizing that, because somebody was asking him about the Marvel side of things, like, hey, they were wishing that they had somebody like a James Gunn over at Marvel to kind of give them trusted information coming straight from the source. Maybe it doesn't have to even come from Kevin Feige, according to this person asking, or just it wasn't asking James Gunn. He was just sort of like ruminating on the internet. But then James replied to that. He said, like, here's what I do when I don't talk personally to the filmmakers. As in, let's say somebody like Taika Waititi working on a new Thor movie. And he says, one, I only fully trust the staff that the stuff that's been publicly announced, either by Kevin Feige and Marvel himself, or DC, Disney, and Star Wars, stuff like that. So like from the source in a press release, or like some kind of official statement, or if like Kevin Feige literally says it in an interview, something like that. Or two, it comes from mainstream trades, and we have talked about this: The Hollywood Reporter, Variety, Deadline. Those are the three big ones. There's a few others out there too, like The Wrap, but like if it comes from them, generally it's well sourced. And as James Gunn says, it's usually true Not always, but it's usually true. So like a lot of the times that he has confirmed things, like when we got the Kyle Chandler news and the Aaron Pierre news, James Gunn literally quoted the articles from Deadline and Variety to confirm it. And sometimes he made the announcement first. Sometimes he was like, "Look, we didn't do the Kyle Chandler thing officially because the contract's only just finished being signed."
Right.
And now it's absolutely true. And then he said number three, if it's from a trusted fan press, it could be true, but easily could not be. And then four, if it comes from most scoopers, it probably not true as their batting average isn't great, and that's what we talk about here as well.
Yeah.
Some are obviously better than others. So again, as far as like the hierarchy of what you should trust, I do believe like
The
coming from
hierarchy of the
source,
scoopers is about to change.
about to change. I think they very much land towards the bottom of the pile. So like some of what we've been talking about does come from the scoopers, and that's why we keep saying, look, it's fun to speculate and talk about it, but ultimately a lot of this couldn't be, might not be true, and some of it does sound very out there. But when James Gunn tells you though that the script isn't done, that is true. Like and whereas when somebody's saying, oh yeah, there's time jumps and lanterns,
Yeah.
believe me, like that's a little harder to like trust. Now,
Right.
I think just here again, it sort of helps to kind of clarify like what information we put our faith into, and how much do we trust it. But with that said, John, there's something more interesting even that James Gunn said here, um, and that's to do with there's some new projects potentially coming our way from the DC studios, which could be DCU or Elseworlds, but we don't quite know about them yet. So James Gunn was asked, "Hey, do you think?" And it was a very specific timeline that he was asked about. That within the next 2 months or so, we'll hear official announcements for quote unquote greenlit or near greenlit unannounced projects you teased in the Creature Commandos interviews, which he has. He has said like there's some unannounced, like there was an unannounced project coming out after Lanterns. He said, and James Gunn basically said yes, period. Like again, very simple one-word answer saying, look, yes, it's basically that we will announce new projects that have been greenlit or they're almost greenlit, but you guys don't know about them yet. I think Dynamic Duo was an example of that. But I wonder what other projects there might be, in the oven that might be on the verge of announcing. Would you
What
care to
buns are
speculate?
in the oven, James?
Yeah. What do you think?
I don't know. I mean, maybe he's officially confirming Titans because, as he said, the Variety, Deadline, Hollywood Reporter article is most likely true, but maybe he's just like, okay, let's like confirm. Yeah, and Aguirre's writing it, but like, let's confirm. So I think that might be like one. I think like if I were to guess, maybe like two or three more projects that are connected. Um, I would say Teen Titans is one. I would say Clayface could be a good one. Because I feel like that just kind of makes sense. And then like one other project, maybe like a one that's been like kind of confirmed, kind of not. That's just been like, oh, there's a rumor here, there. Like The Question or Plastic Man. I've seen those are the names like kind of flirting about. So I think I don't know if he's writing Brave and the Bold. I don't think he's writing Brave and the Bold. I know Muschietti's directing it, but a writer has not been confirmed. And I think after writing and directing Superman, I don't think he would want to go to the next biggest superhero like immediately for writing. I think he wants to like have like in terms of the stuff he's working on, I feel like he's the type of guy that would work on like something really big, like Superman, and then something really like a smaller character like Peacemaker. That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's not like okay, he's working on Superman and then he's going to work on Lanterns. It's like two huge characters on two huge different pieces of media. It's like, okay, dude, calm down. I don't think he would write that. But if I were to guess, like something along those lines, smaller characters, I don't think we're going to get something big like a Justice League movie or a Wonder Woman movie or um a or anything like that. I don't think we're going to get something that big. It would be nice to see, but I think we're going to get like smaller characters, maybe like as I said, like Teen Titans like having an official word from him, Clayface getting a confirmation, and then maybe like a TV show. Question Plastic Man, or those are the beginning. Green Arrow has been kind of rumored a little bit, so something like that because he did talk about Green Arrow. So So it's entirely possible that those are the names floating about, but who knows? It would whatever is the case. I'm very curious and stoked for what else that the living Batmite has in mind.
Yeah, no, I think it's probably something where people again really like to blow it out of proportion. He could just be referring to something that, well, it will be news to us, but it might not necessarily be like ground shattering news. So I don't think this is something that we should look at and think like, oh, it's gonna be, some crazy new character, like maybe like the first thing we jump to, like, oh, Aquaman, Flash, Wonder Woman, right? But I think the emphasis so far has been they want to stay away from giving us the Trinity straight away. They want to build out
Hmm.
these other characters. Don't want to leave. They don't want to be so heavily involved. By the way, James, gonna as we are live here, he's actually answering people's questions on Threads. He's pretty active there right now. So one of the things he was asking, like, do you guys already have your posters that you're gonna be the official ones that you're gonna release for the film, or is that decided later? I imagine there's been ideas and concepts thrown around for a little while, but I wonder if you have anything concrete ready to go. And to that, James Gunn said, some are done, yes. And then he was
Oh yeah,
asked
Sergeant
about,
Rock would be another one.
yes, that could be another one.
And
That could,
Dead Man,
yep,
the Blue Beetle show, which kind of has been confirmed, sort of, not really. I do hope we get like an animated DCU movie, like something that's maybe has gotten something. A Plastic Man animated movie could work. I think that would be a lot of fun,
yeah, yeah,
and that's less
and
risky because people know who he is.
by the way,
Just saying.
he said that the Creature Commandos soundtrack is going to be on his channel on Spotify. That's something he just mentioned. Um, Oh, and he said there was one scooper who's pretty damn good, I must say. I wish I didn't spoil stuff so much. I wish he didn't spoil so much stuff so much, but he definitely gets some respect for the amount of stuff he gets right. That said, he's still incorrect 30%, which is the numbers like one of you guys were pointing out earlier. So that's where that number comes from. Like 70% of the time, the batting average still is pretty. I mean, although in baseball that would be a pretty good batting average, to be fair. With that said, guys, we do have some trailer related news that James gonna address. So I'll put that in and we'll talk about it a little bit later. Um, in the meantime, let's kind of go over to our next story here. Give me 1 second, see if I can pull it up. Um, let's talk about Superman and Lois, shall we, John? Let's move over to
Yeah.
that. Because as far as newly lit greenlit projects go for James Gunn, we will kind of circle back to this later. But right now, let's talk about Superman and Lois. So
Yeah.
the penultimate episode, John. It's almost
Yes.
coming to an end. We're almost there. We're almost across the finish line. It's the final DC thing that exists in the CW.
Hmm.
It's gone through a lot of budget cuts, and yet we're here, and it looks like they saved the big bucks for the last couple of episodes. So, what
Hmm.
are your thoughts? You finished watching it. It aired on Monday. The final episode airs next Monday on what would be December 2nd, and things are coming to a head. They're starting to tie up loose ends, and they're brought back a pretty significant Superman villain in this episode, and he looks a bit different. So, what are your thoughts on the show? And did you enjoy episode 9 of Superman Lois season 4?
I did. I think the show has kind of been like sort of a mellow, like sort of like straight line of like not the like greatest the show has to offer. I think it's a bit of a flawed season. It has been like the first two episodes were really good, and then 3, 4, and 5 were kind of but then the last few have been pretty damn good. Like 6 and 8, I remember being a lot better. Um, I think it definitely feels like this season was like two 13 episode seasons kind of mashed together a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It is a bit rushed. It is a bit much, and I feel like they were just trying to do all these ideas that they want. Because I remember, I think it was Bitsy Tulloch that was saying that the show was supposed to be 7 seasons, like they had a plan for 7. So it feels like all the best ideas that they wanted to do for 4 more seasons of television are kind of being thrown into here. And you can kind of feel that, but they're trying, like, considering the budget cuts, the cast cuts, and the episode cuts. They're trying their best to make this work, and I do think that they are succeeding. I do think, yes, I feel you can definitely see that they're doing a lot, but it's just like they're trying to give us the best they can give while also trying to incorporate all the ideas that were happening before. I will admit Doomsday looks a little iffy, but like it's a TV budget. It's
I think the
like
texturing and modeling is as good as the CW has ever
it,
seen.
it
So
like you can only do so much. Like I know everyone's like, "Oh, he looks like a fucking special at KFC." What the fuck? But it's like, all right, everyone said that a fucking,
yeah.
$200 million version of Doomsday looked like the cave troll from Fellowship of the Ring. So it's like, the fuck do you people want? Like, we've gotten Doomsday in 4 different live action iterations. We got the fucking god awful Davis Bloom version in, Smallville, which was just a guy wearing a suit. And then I will say the Krypton one looked pretty good. That one looked pretty good. And then the BVS one looked okay. Like, he looked a little bit too shiny, it looked a little bit too lumpy, but I think it looked good. And this looks good for a
It also,
television.
but
Like,
in BVS the character evolves. Like they actively
yeah,
change his design as the
yeah.
fight continues, right?
And
So
it's just like the only thing I don't like, the only thing that would have made this better is just the eyes. The human eyes just look so awkward to me. And I'm just like, get rid of that and it would
I
look a
mean,
lot better.
but I get the reasoning though, right? Like because
Because
he's
he's
kind
made
of
from Bizarro. He's made from like a human. But Bizarro didn't have human eyes. He had like glowing blue eyes. So I don't know. Whatever it is, it's, despite this, I thought it was a really good episode. You had like kind of like mind game Superman a little bit, because it's like the best thing about Lex Luthor is his mind. And so he's trying to fuck up this family, Smallville, the people around them, like doing everything he can to destroy this guy, because that's his life's purpose,
Mhm.
is that he's the smartest man in the world and he's like doing his best. Now, they're just trying to, like, it's like a game of Machiavellian cat and mouse as much as they can do for CW. You have like Superman planting ideas in his head, Lex planting ideas in his head, Lois planting ideas in Amanda's head, and like all these, just trying to, it's like a great battle of wits. And then you have the stuff with John and Jordan, and I like that they're still like dealing with their powers, but they also mention, and I really like how they mention this, they mention the hindrance of their powers because of their mother's DNA. It's like, yeah, remember these kids, they're still half human at the end of the
Right.
day. Like, because that's the whole thing. They're like kind of setting up, um, they're kind of setting up like a big battle sort of thing, the
Right.
twins like having to possibly come in to save their dad,
Mhm.
and maybe the legacy of them after he's gone, which I'll get to soon. You have that as well, like them becoming like twin superheroes. And I think like this was overall a very, you had Chad L. Coleman, speaking of the Orville, coming back as Bruno Mannheim, him being great as well, just trying to take to help. Lois goes to him to help, you know oh, people already are, my guy. People already are. Where have you been? People are saying, "Oh yeah, the Arrowverse was the most amazing thing ever." I'm like, "Yeah, that's not what you've been saying for the past decade when you've been shitting on it." I'm tried and true. Like, I'll say it's garbage. Most, like, 80% of the Arrowverse was garbage. So just keep that in mind. But yeah, Superman and Lois, I think this was a really good episode. Again, you had the action, you had the battle of wits, you had Cudlitz being a great Lex Luthor, you had Tyler Hoechlin being the, prime Superman. Like everyone had a part to play. Everyone like felt really like great. We got a little bit of mech suit Lex Luthor. I'm a little disappointed that we didn't get like the purple and green on the outside. And I don't think we're going to be getting that in the trailer. We just see him in the boring mix and the boring gray mech suit, which is like, all right, fine. But I still I still love that we got like mech suit Lex Luthor because he looks awesome in the fucking suit. Like he really does. And yeah, this was just a really really good episode. I don't think it was like the best that that the show's done or the best the season has ever done, but I really liked this episode and we're getting something good for the future. I do hope that they're not just having like Death of Superman at the beginning and then he Doomsday fucks off for like the majority of the season and then he comes back
Uh,
and kills him again. I just feel like that's repetitive as hell. I just
mhm.
hope in this case what they're going to do is this is my hope and I this is my hope and I can see the likelihood of this happening is in the show what they'll do because like the whole thing is like him losing his powers. He's not gonna die by Doomsday, but he is gonna lose his powers. Like he's gonna overexert so much that he's gonna lose his powers, and then the twins are gonna come in and like help him out, save the day, and then Doomsday somehow dies. However they plan to do it, um they die and the Doomsday dies and then they move on, but then like this I think it would be really cool that the show would end like more along the lines of whatever happened to the Man of Tomorrow, where he just loses his powers and he just lives a
Mm,
normal life and that's it. Well, normal, but like can't
right.
because he already outed himself as Superman. But I
the
think
the artist formerly known as Superman.
yeah.
Yeah.
uh
Really
but
agree
yeah,
with
I
you,
think
miraculous.
that's
Yeah.
yes, most definitely. I just think that this has been a good season, not the best, but it's not like where it like ends with a whimper kind of thing. I don't think it's
Yeah.
ending with a whimper. I think we're getting a lot of great stuff this season. It just could have been a lot better, but they couldn't do anything else because they, like there was just Edward Scissorhands just came in and slashed everything. And so they had to work with what they had. And some episodes are better than others. Like you had the fucking wedding episode, which is like, all right, why is the fuck is this happening? They don't end up getting married anyway. Um, exactly. Um, maybe in comic book form
I do
or like an
look. I would
animated
love it.
series or
Maybe
something like
one
that.
day. I'm like if it stands to make money, and because like the studio needs a financial reason to like give Zack Snyder a chance to do another movie, regardless of what kind of thing it is, if it's DC or otherwise,
Yeah.
it applies to everything. But like I wouldn't mind one day seeing that, but it's just a matter of like there's a lot of other things involved, like Henry Cavill, Ben Affleck, all those people would need to come back. They would need to cast new actors for roles that we hadn't even seen yet. There's so much. So to that end, like you said, maybe an animated movie would be better. I did want to ask you one
But
other
yeah.
thing about
Overall good
Superman.
episode though. Great
Yes,
episode. So I
it's
can't wait
it's
for the series finale.
it's
Even though it's a
doing
little
well, and
sad, but you know.
yeah, and Bitsy Tulloch has been posting like these like artworks for it. It just, I mean, it gives you a certain sense of nostalgia because I feel like like I almost remember back when the show was first starting up, and I remember how surprised I was by the quality of the VFX. Having said that, John, this show is almost done, but
Mhm.
there's one more episode left. I do want to ask you a little bit about what you think is going to happen in the finale. What are your expectations for the finale? Are you looking forward to seeing certain events happen? You want to see certain specific conclusions to character arcs? What are your expectations for the series finale of Superman and Lois? And it's going to be called It Went By So Fast, which again, sort of tugging at the heartstrings. What are your thoughts? What would you like to see?
I just fucking hope they don't kill him. Like it just like because you already did it.
They've teased it
And
so much. I feel like they can't kill him at this point, unless
like
they're going the Logan route. Like it
it's
was a
just like it's
western.
way too
Yeah.
obvious and it's just so it would be kind of lame now because you already had him die. What are you gonna have him die again? Like that's just kind of stupid and repetitive. But I think they're gonna do something. I hope it's longer. I hope it's like at least like maybe an hour, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. I don't think that's the case, but I think I remember yeah, I think I remember seeing when I recorded it because I was like, I gotta record it, I gotta remember to record it. Um I think it was like an hour. It was still just an hour, but I hope I do hope that like maybe a little bit longer, but I don't think that's the case. But I hope yeah, as I said, I hope that that he doesn't die, that like he just loses his powers and he just lives a normal life because it went by so fast could mean like his life as Superman with a Kryptonian with powers went by so fast.
Yeah.
So that I hope that's the case, and then the twins like that's like the ultimate like showing of legacy, like they become super boys, supermen. I mean, you already
Hmm.
got the Superman red, Superman blue thing going on
Hmm.
right here. Um, so I hope that that's the case. And,
Yeah.
we got John Henry Irons, we got Ew Gross Lana Lang, but it's culmination of everything. I'm glad that it's ending after 4 seasons because even though the 7 season plan I'm sure would have been a lot better
Hmm.
because they would have actually planned it and it would have been a complete show rather than whatever the fuck that all the other shows try to do. I'm glad that it's not just overstaying its welcome because even with 4 seasons, a show can overstay its welcome. I've heard terrible things about the last season of Doom Patrol, so I haven't watched it. I still need to watch it, but that's
Yeah.
from what I've heard. Um, but yeah, it was a great show, and I'm glad it's ending in a good place. It might not be the best place, but it's still in a good place. And this was the show that went against all odds, was an Arrowverse DC show that was good from beginning to end, which you can't say about any of the other ones. Arrow seasons 1 and 2 were good, sucked after that. I've heard good things about seasons 5 and 6. Um and I've heard seasons 5 and 6 are okay, but like still not very good. The Flash, the first 1.5 seasons were excellent, and then it just shit the bed. Season 4 had some potential, but wasted it, and then after that was just terrible. I've heard season 9 is so bad. My buddy was watching. I'm like, why are you doing this to yourself? He's like, I want to see it through. I'm like, you're a fucking idiot. He's like, I know. Um, but yeah, and then Supergirl was never good. Like season 1 was fine, but it wasn't great. And then just went downhill from there. First half of season 3 was pretty good, but like most of it was garbage. Legends of Tomorrow, seasons 2 and 3 were good. And then
I
everything
just
else was
that
kind of
show was so
trash.
uneven. It was yeah.
It was
Go ahead.
really uneven. What was and then nobody fucking remembers Gotham Knights or Naomi or Batwoman, so it's like whatever.
Yeah, unfortunately. What I will say
Well,
though
fortunately.
is it does bring an end to an era, and then there's this one thing I noticed after seeing what was a very underwhelming physique and costume for Tyler Hoechlin in the Supergirl version of Superman that he played. The man doesn't skip leg day, man. Look at that. Like I don't think he's been skipping leg day. Like it's popping. Like holy cow. Like it's
Yeah. He's
he's
definitely
built
doing his
up
squats too, not
he's
gonna
he's
lie.
he's built up his physique. I think the longer the show has gone on, not only have they improved the costume, but Tyler Hoechlin has really stepped into the role in a way that feels like he's probably I think he's the best small screen Superman we've ever gotten. I personally think Henry
Probably.
Cavill is still my favorite. But I mean his iteration is up there. I think it climbed up way higher than I ever thought it could.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. He might be my favorite, like straight up,
yeah,
just like
it's
favorite of
great.
all time. I know
And
everyone's gonna say
yeah,
Tom Welling, but like, eh. Tom Welling can't act outside of
he
like
was
a
he
wet
was
bag
just
of
never a
gravel.
fully formed Superman, so I don't know if it's a fair comparison even. It's like despite
Yeah,
the fact that it ran for 10 seasons, I don't really count him in the same and it's also from such a different era. It's like it's kind of hard for me to compare the Brendan Routh Superman. I mean, it's a little easier to do so because it is from, it's a movie and it was a bigger budget and it sort of was a continuation of the Christopher Reeves movies. But anyway, I just still think Tyler Hoechlin Superman grew on me in a way that I did not expect when the show was first announced. Simply because I did not expect much from the show at all, considering what Tyler Hoechlin Superman was in Supergirl. It was a jobber
yeah,
Superman. But he went from a jobber Superman to becoming probably one of the best that we have ever seen.
yeah,
And it's great to see. And I mean, uh, Caleb thinks still Christopher Reeves the best. I'm not saying that that's still very much Christopher Reeves is up there for a lot of people.
yeah.
It is the definitive iteration, but Tyler Hoechlin has done a great job of making the character his own, and of course Bitsy Tulloch as well playing the other titular character of Lois Lane. And now
Hmm.
we get to look forward to a new Superman and Lois Lane coming up next year in the DCU. But until
Yeah.
then, of course, December 2nd, on the CW that's on Monday coming up in a few days, or if
As I
you're
said,
abroad,
it's
you
literally the end of an era, and then
yeah,
3 days later, a new era begins. I think they
yeah.
fucking planned that.
I think so too. The
I think
timing, yeah,
the timing is just too perfect because the because they did 2 episodes for the season premiere, and that just so happens to perfectly line up with Creature Commandos coming out. And so, they had to have like planned that because of like that's just perfect because just it's just the perfect bam, just like okay, end of DCEU slash Arrowverse, and then the era of DCU where everything is shared relatively begins in terms of TV and movies, where for so long it was separate. Well, until Peacemaker, that is. But yeah,
yeah,
I think that's very apropos. It's very,
yeah.
serendipitous, I guess. I don't think
Hmm.
serendipitous is the right word, but very, it feels
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. And you know what? Hopefully, this for all our sakes, and certainly for the sake of the legacy of this show for Superman and Lois, um, the show ends on a high note next week. On Monday, December 2nd. You can see it on CW in the US. If you're abroad, if you find it on a streaming service on another network, we hope you will tune in and watch it. It went by so fast. It kind of reminds me of some of the marketing they did for the series finale of The Flash. Even though I didn't see all of the seasons, I did enjoy the show for the peak seasons that it had in the early goings, and so I still had like fond memories. So to see like Grant Gustin kind of walk up to the box with the costume and stuff. I think they did like this like motion cover of a magazine, like Empire or whatever. I think it was one of the big Hollywood trade magazines, and he just sort of packs up the box, and there's like something, I forget what was written on the box, and then he like picks it up and walks away. Um, it's just it does tug, like it's I for one, like, am the kind of person who, when a show comes, if I'm watching a show that I know that like the last episode is coming up and I don't want that show to end for me, I have done it where a couple of times I haven't seen the finale for years, because then in my mind the show isn't over yet, because I
Yeah.
haven't seen the finale. So
That's
it's like you get attached. These people come into our TV, on our TV screens, but then they come into our homes, and our brains have a hard time, differentiating that between the people we see in real life and the people we see on screen. We get attached.
Yeah.
It's
So
yeah,
it's that's kind of how it was when I was rewatching Doctor Who, the like as in the new version with Christopher Eccleston from the beginning. And I mean he was my first Doctor, so I was like watching, I was like, "Oh man, this is, great stuff." And then like I reached the very last, not even the last story because it's a two-part story. I reached the last episode and I'm like, it took me like a month to finally bucker down and watch it because like I just didn't want to. I didn't, even though I know what's gonna happen, I know he's gone, I know all this stuff. It just like it hurt to say goodbye again. And I never had that with any other Doctor because it's like I think maybe because Christopher Eccleston, you know, was the only Doctor to have like
yeah.
a genuinely good ending. All the other ones were fucking garbage. So that's probably like, oh God, just put me out of my misery. So
Misery.
like, so all of them were just
Yeah,
terrible. But like that one like hurt. That one still hurts the most.
yeah.
Maybe just going back to the first Doctor I ever watched, and for a lot of people too. So there was
Hmm.
that. But I don't know. It's just like I get that. I'm not usually like that, but I get that. I don't usually rewatch shows either, so that doesn't like pop up as much. But yeah,
Yeah.
I think that I mean maybe tears will be shed. I did had a the sexy cry where I one lone tear came down when I finished Legion because it was just such a
It's, dude, I
absolutely
can't believe.
perfect fucking ending.
Yeah.
It worked. Like everyone says, oh, like this was the end of the Fox universe. This was like, oh, Logan, Deadpool and Wolverine. No, no, no. The ending, the perfect ending was Legion because
Hmm.
literally everything ended and they go back and then everything got erased. Like that's you can't because literally a whole new universe starts.
Right.
So it's perfect. So to me,
Yeah.
Legion is the ending. That's the
Yeah.
ending of like the Fox X-Men universe.
Well, I mean, look, I think the biggest the biggest selling point for this show, for Superman and Lois, always was that they wanted to go beyond a Superman that was just learning to be Superman or just met Lois Lane. They wanted to show a Superman who had been doing his thing for a long time, and him and Lois had sort of come together, and it was basically the big motif was that they were they wanted to see Superman in a different light as a family man, that this was a family, and they were going to essentially show us a side of Clark Kent, of Lois Lane that we haven't seen before. And I know a little bit of CW drama, teenage drama, and I'm like, I didn't sign up for that part of it, but I think people appreciated, and especially look, this final episode is gonna air a few days after Thanksgiving, which is and in the holiday season. So like it's just I think the whole family motif, Superman, Lois, it's gonna pay it off just about as perfectly as it possibly can.
Your brother never told you never threaten a man's family?
And on that note, I think we're going to wrap up the review for Superman and Lois. We do have a few more things to discuss, though, so we're not going anywhere, so stick around. But let us know in the comments, did you enjoy Superman and Lois episode 9? And of course, if you did, then we'd love to hear from you, and what did you like about it. Right now, we're going to continue on with the next story that we have to talk about, John. So, James Gunn again. We're going to switch back over to talking about James Gunn, as we usually are. He was asked if he has a plan or studio in mind for DCU's first video game. Because remember, he has said that the video games will be canon by and large to the DCU. It's not like the video game story is going to be completely its own standalone thing, and then the movies will be doing their own thing. He's like, the movies, the animated stuff, and the video games will all sort of be in canon. So to that question, he's basically said, yes, I'll give you a soft yes on that. Do you think this means that James Gunn A has an idea for what that first video game will be? And then B, like, is it further along, considering he said that, hey, he might have he said yes to potentially having a studio in mind. You don't necessarily have a studio in mind unless you know what that studio is really good at, and therefore you must know what game you have in mind. Do you care to speculate what that game might be that James Gunn is thinking about for the DCU?
I think it would be something that, well, obviously would be cause for a video game, because there's just so many characters, like, to make that work. I think a character. Okay, so I know people have had discussions about this already. Because a lot of people say, "Oh, I don't want my introduction to this character to be in a video game," but I think it would be awesome to have like a Flash video game, or like a Martian Manhunter or Aquaman video game. I think that would be, but because they're a known enough character, and I think you can make that work. But there's also this, just like, I don't want them to be introduced and then like they reference like video games, because video games are an even smaller market than movie. Like, movies are the biggest, then TV, then Marvel.
Actually, I would say the biggest games are comparable to movies in terms of the amount of money. Like Call of Duty game. Like,
no, I know. It's just like in terms of,
it's-
I mean, in terms of general audiences. Like, if there's like a movie with the Flash later on, and they make a Flash video game beforehand, it's like, well, that's confusing. What are we talking about? So
I'm just saying that GTA 6 is gonna make more money than most movies the year that it comes out, right? Like, it's so the bar can be high. The Arkham games have been incredibly successful, but I do agree with the general sentiment of what you were saying. And Buster Barnes is still advocating for the Crazy Quilt video game. But yeah, I personally would like to just see if maybe the Arkham series will now be part of the DCU. I wouldn't mind.
No way. They fucked that up with fucking Kill the Justice League. That's not happening. Get that out of here.
I don't know. I'm just saying. The Watcher saying that he believes it's a Superman game. Superman is such an obvious choice, Ron says, but video game developers lack vision. And then Buster Barnes saying, I doubt video games will be vital to the overall story. I think it's more likely going to be that there'll be these tangential stories that you don't need to pay attention to really follow the universe, but they will still be canon. So if they wanted to ever explore that tangent, it will still be part of the larger, story of the DCU. But I do agree with the general sentiment what you're saying there. And then the Watcher saying, I'd argue games are bigger than movies. I think so too. It depends on the context, right? Now, I think right now the video game industry is overall on the rise, whereas Hollywood in general is still struggling. And I think movie going as a habit is in decline because of streaming and other avenues. And video games are one of the competitors, direct competitors like streaming, to going to a movie in a movie theater. So I do agree with you to a certain degree, Watcher. Um, Watcher also saying, no, John, we don't talk about Suicide Squad kills the Justice League. It isn't canon.
Yeah, no, it isn't canon. Like
Yeah.
my buddy goes into like rage and rant about kill the. Anytime it's mentioned, he's like, "Motherfucker! I swear to God!" Like, you want to know something really funny?
Mm,
I think it was I think it was on like the PlayStation Store or whatever. Somebody posted the price for Kill the Justice League. It was originally like an $80 game, like they usually are. Now
mhm.
it's the clearance it's now at like $5, I think. I think it's like at like $5-10
Well,
now. I don't think so. Because the thing is, we're getting a Wonder Woman esque thing with Paradise
yeah,
Lost. I don't think they're gonna include that. I think that would be too much of a
yeah,
gray area to. That's why I think they should go with a character that they have not introduced yet,
yeah.
because it's less gray. It's like, okay, clearly with what we've gotten, there's no plans for like an Aquaman or the Flash, and they need some redemption after what happened. Or like as I was saying, Plastic Man, you could do like that would be a lot of fun with what like you can transform into, kind of like
Hmm.
almost like Scribble Knots in a way, but like with your own body. Or something maybe like a Dr. Fate game could be really fun, like something like a magic user, like Zatanna could be really cool, but unfortunately they're not too popular to do that. But like I think that would work. I know a lot of people would disagree with that, but personally I think no. I think personally having a character that we haven't gotten yet in a game or in the DCU yet or what's planned, I think that would be really awesome. I think that would be really great. Like a Japanese developer, because they actually know what they're doing, because God knows no Western developer knows what they're fucking doing with Kill the Justice League and Spider-Man 2 going the way of the fucking dinosaurs. Woof. So I just
Yeah.
it could be a lot of fun.
Yeah. Although I do think like for the Ron also saying the Flash could be a possible option. I don't think it would be the Authority or the Flash, because I don't think they want to introduce a major character through a video game, because it does exclude a big audience that
It
might
does.
want to go see, that might be watching a movie or a TV show but not necessarily gaming, right?
Right.
That's where I think gaming is potentially bigger than movies, and yet in some ways
Exactly.
more niche than movies still. But it's a good point. I think these will all be good options down the road. As far as maybe what's coming up first, it's probably a safer bet. And I mean, I personally would love to see like maybe if that Wonder Woman thing becomes part of it, although it is separate as of right now, I believe. But we'll see. Maybe
Mhm.
it's a Blue Beetle thing. Maybe it's a Booster Gold thing. But again, those characters. Maybe it's a Peacemaker video game. I wouldn't mind seeing that 2 seasons
I mean,
in.
he's already been
Make
in a
that
video game. He was in
yeah.
Mortal Kombat 1.
He's in Mortal Kombat 1, so they've. I mean, hello. Maybe they'll go back to the same studio. But
That would be cool.
that would be cool. But speaking of studios, DC Studios is about to start a new era, like you said, in about a week's time. Is it? We're getting there, and it looks like
Well, now
living.
exactly a week, because it's now Thursday.
It's
Happy Thanksgiving, guys.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. To you and your family. We are thankful. I am thankful for you being here with
We
us
are
and
we are
joining
both
us.
thankful for your comment. Like, and we're not saying this to like be funny either. We're genuinely thankful for all your
Yes.
comments, for your participation, for your interest in the show. It's blown up for the past fucking like 6
Yeah.
months, and we are incredibly thankful for each and
Yes.
every one of you, for the people watching live and watching later. We appreciate you and we love you. So,
And we are here for you like 5 days a week, and we love the conversation. And we hope
mhm.
that this, we'll continue to grow the community that we have created here. And you guys are all very much appreciated and valued members of the community. So, continue to, of course, keep coming over, and we'll do our very best to keep you engaged, entertained, educated, informed. And let's, speaking of which, continue to talk about DC, because the very first project in the world of the DCU is about to come out, and literally a week from now. And it looks like we are living in the world of Alan Tudyk. It's his world, and we're just living in it, however you want to say that. Because not only is he voicing Dr. Phosphorus and Clayface in Creature Commandos, James Gunn just confirmed that he will also voice Dr. Will Magnus of the Metal Men in Creature Commandos. So it looks like not only is he going to voice some of the main characters, the recurring characters, but he's also going to be the voice of a couple of maybe cameos or like single episodes, like one and done appearances. He just seems to be the go-to voice. We have seen this before, where in a lot of how a lot of animated shows and movies, you'll see one actor voice multiple characters,
Oh
but
yeah,
not at the scale of like you're getting somebody the star power of Alan Tudyk doing it. But I do enjoy it, the idea that you're gonna get to hear who I think is one of the absolute living treasures in Hollywood today, Alan Tudyk. Like he's just a fantastic actor. His voice is amazing, and I would love to see how this all plays out. What are your thoughts on this? I know you're a bigger fan of Alan Tudyk than even I am. So how did you react to this news when you saw?
I'm like holding back tears right now. Like I wish I was joking because it's like this man has done so much for this industry, and like his talent is immeasurable. His Whether he's in front of the camera or voicing, I mean, speaking of, Moana 2, it's out now. It
Hmm.
from the beginning, whether he's Steve the pirate or he's on fucking Firefly, or he's the fucking dick bag in, I forget his name, in 42. He has amazing range. He has just immense amounts of talent, and it's just so awesome to see, because I think it works here. Ooh, fucking Mr. Canadian. All right, fucking asshole, Jesus. But Alan Tudyk, like, because the thing is, like, when you look at these three characters, Dr. Phosphorus and Clayface are characters that don't really have a human form. So I got distracted by the comment because that's so true. He is Clayface, like he's such a shapeshifter.
He is, yeah.
Because goddamn, he's just fucking so excellent. And when I saw this, I'm like, I was happy for a whole bunch of different reasons. One, again, Alan Tudyk being amazing. Two, giving him the roles he deserves. Three, getting the fucking Metal Men. If this is something in regards to the unannounced projects, the near greenlit stuff that we're getting,
Like a
I'd be
backdoor pilot almost.
I would be
Oh,
fucking open. Well, DCU, buddy. Not MCU, DCU.
wait. No. A backdoor pilot is usually when you try to introduce a character that you want to give them their own
No, no, no. I
show
know a backdoor
in
pilot.
another show, right? I'm just okay. Go ahead.
No,
Sorry.
no. I was just talking about Ron's comment. You accidentally
Oh,
posted MCU, not DCU.
I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah.
Sorry, Ron. You gotta. It's okay. It's late. We understand.
Yeah.
But so we're getting Dr. Phosphorus, and that's like again, I'm thinking live action, because he said that we're getting certain characters in live action. Now, I mean, who knows? These fuckers could die, so who knows? But anyway, we're just assuming they're alive and they're gonna show up in live action. Dr. Phosphorus, yeah, he has the voice, but like he's like pretty much he would be entirely CGI. Exactly. If he's entirely CGI, Clayface entirely CGI, or at the very least with Dr. Phosphorus, they can maybe try to make it practical. They could probably make it work with like paint and then like maybe touch it up with CGI. But anyway, but Will Magnus, that would be just Alan Tudyk doing his thing. That would just be him. And Will Magnus is and the thing is, because Dr. Phosphorus, it seems like he's like mad, and it's three very different characters. Dr. Phosphorus, you have like that like mad scientist sort of vibe, but like also like kind of funny, like in the trailer, he's pissing, and it's just like that sort of thing. But he like the kind of a mad scientist vibe, very different. Clayface is you could go a lot of different ways with that. Like I know in his Clayface in Harley Quinn is like a thespian, because he's like because they made him like, oh, he's an actor, so they over exaggerated that. I'm like, okay, that works. So boom, Clay. So you could like kind of go for like just generic monster, kind of what he was in like the Arkham
Right.
games.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you could do that, and then or you can like go like the actor route or whatever. You can do a lot of things. And then Will Magnus, he's a fucking asshole. Will Magnus is such like if there was the personification of a male character going what is it, gatekeep, gaslight, girl boss, that's Will
Mhm.
Magnus. That is essentially Will Magnus as a character. And I feel like he could, like, Alan Tudyk could have a lot of fun with that because Will Magnus is a fucking dickbag, and this could lead into, the like essentially maybe a backdoor pilot. But I feel like having two teams would be awkward. Like you have Task Force M, and then you have Metalman. I feel like that's a bit too much. So I think they're just gonna have Will Magnus here. I don't think they're actually gonna have the Metalman. So but in terms of the unannounced projects near Greenlit, Metalman movie or TV show would be fucking fire. I think it would work better as an animated show because again, they're like shape-shifting, like stretchy kind of characters. I think that would work better, especially being introduced in animation, the head of that. Um, so I think that would be awesome. Again, I'm getting a little bit too excited, but I think this has just been excellent. Alan Tudyk deserves the world and everything more. Um, so I'm glad he's just getting three just like classic characters, and I wish him everything. All right, but no, yeah, okay. You know what happened when we last time we dealt with the English? We threw your fucking tea in the harbor. So why don't you just shut the fuck up, okay? Um, but yeah, I think this is again. I forget who mentioned it. Maybe it was the Watcher. Maybe it was both. Or one of you guys said it's steadily increasing. I agree.
Miraculous did. Yeah.
Steadily,
Yeah.
Miraculous said it's steadily increasing. I hard agree with that. I'm
Yeah.
getting more and more. Not too excited. I have a lot of reservations, but I'm
Yeah.
getting more and more excited for it. So
Yeah.
this is awesome.
Well, I mean, this isn't, of course, the only, voice casting news. There's also confirmation from James Gunn now that Peter, aka Garthon Saul from Guardians of the Galaxy, is somebody he's going to be working with again. And as usual, he said he murdered this role. So this was something that was put out there through Collider, and then James Gunn confirmed it. We of course have seen him before in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Peter Serafinowicz. It's a long last name. I apologize if I mispronounce it. He will voice Dr. Victor Frankenstein in Creature Commandos. So again, just confirmation on that. And another great actor, somebody who James Gunn has worked with before, who I thought did a pretty good job with
He
what
was
he's used
also
the
the
role.
Tick.
Yes, he was. Oh, you're right. Yes, he was. Okay. I just remember him in the first Guardians movie though, with the whole the.
What a bunch of a-holes.
Those a-holes. Like
I do
I
like
just
Peter Serafinowicz, and it's funny. I think I was doing a fan casting of the Metal Men, and I think I had Peter Serafinowicz as one of them. So it's interesting how they just announced two roles for the show, although not the one associated with Metal Men. I just think that's an interesting sort of thing. Just saying. Anyway.
Yeah. By the way, guys, just a quick reminder: if you're watching and you haven't hit the like button, please do. It really does help us out. It's one like for you, and it really makes a
Tally
big difference for
ho,
us.
chum. Yes,
So,
very much so.
but yeah, look, it's looking like this show's cast is more and more stacked. I'm like, are they not done working on this, or how are we still finding out stuff about like the voice actors? But it's great. I do love it, and I'm looking forward to it. It's only a week away now, so we won't have to wait too much longer. Now, of course, we do have a couple other things to dive into before we finish up. There are some more photos they put out for Creature Commandos, and it just looks like, again, they're continuing to promote it, and we're getting another closer look at the characters of the show. And I'm just looking forward to seeing, how all of these characters will evolve, what we will find out about them, and then, where they end up at the end of the show. And then again, we've talked about it, how maybe they will translate into live action, because we will probably get at least, Frank Grillo's Rick Flag Sr., and Peacemaker season 2. We have even seen a little bit of a hint at it. So I'm looking
We
forward
even
to
have
seeing
James
it for
Gunn
sure.
going, yeah.
He was like, yeah, baby. Oh, he's raising the roof. Now let's talk about the Superman poster. I know you guys talked about it already in the chat, and James Gunn even chimed in on this, so we will get into that as well. But John, just the artwork alone, because it is art by George Quadros, and it looks to me pretty sweet. It just doesn't look like what you would put out as a first poster for a movie in 2024.
Right.
I mean, unless you're going for a real retro 80s look, and even then, I don't know if that was really standard practice. It looks great
Yeah,
to
I don't.
me. It
This is
he's
yeah. I think this was just fan art. Like, oh,
Mhm.
CCXP is coming soon. He just made a poster for it, and that was kind of it. Nothing too crazy.
Yeah, it's good. It's
I
good
considered
artwork,
maybe like he
you know.
was designated
Yeah.
for it by James Gunn, like, oh, make it for the CCXP. But yeah, that's about it. But it makes sense that it's confirmed. Like, oh yeah, not happening. So yeah, I think he did a very good job. Poster looks cool.
hmm
So Gunn now
It,
confirmed it's not
It's
real.
not,
So
yeah, and speaking, this happened while we have been live actually. So James Gunn was active. I don't know if he's still answering questions. Let us know if you're missing anything, guys, because we'll bring it up and had talk about it. But yes, he did say it's not official, but it is cool. So maybe the poster. And he has said to another question on Threads that there are already working on a few things. Like they have a few of the posters already made that they're gonna put out. Not everything, Of course, there's more posters will be made as you get into the summer of Superman. But this right here is about the trailer of the movie, and again, he continues to be asked about it because we haven't yet seen the the actual trailer. Buster Barnes is like, "Holy shit! It's almost 6 a.m. What am I doing? My sleep schedule is messed. What are you doing at 6 a.m.? Oh my god! Speaking of which, my sleep schedule is gonna be messed up because I have to be up really early tomorrow. John gets to sleep in a little bit, but nonetheless, James Gunn was asked this literally an hour ago, less than an hour ago, talking about, hey, who's making this trailer? Where is it coming from? What's the process? How involved is Warner Brothers? Like, who's in charge of this stuff, basically? Like, are you gonna get a make it better comment from somebody, like a studio executive? And James Gunn basically answered all of that by saying, well, sort of. But when he says studios, that's solely me. As the only studio involved in cutting or anything to do with the trailer is DC Studios, aka me and Peter, and I'm the creatively demanding one. This is the exact same rigorous process I've gone through cutting every Guardians trailer, pushing the marketing folks as hard as I can, cutting and recutting until I think we have something worthy of the film itself. All that said, my notes are a lot more specific than make it better. So again, James Gunn saying like, look, that's the process. I'm the one in charge, and I'm me only. Like it's me and Peter Safran. And when I give notes, they're not just make it better. It's more specific than that. And I think from a creative standpoint, when you work on something and then you have a client that you bring it to, if they give you like make it better or what do you think kind of notes, it's not helpful. It's much more helpful if they tell you like at 0029 the shot composition looks weird. Did you guys can we like recolor that? There's a little too much red, maybe the color balance is off. Stuff like that. Very specific notes. Like there's a sound effect I'm hearing at like 0024, and like I think we need to kind of like lower that a little bit. It sort of like overpowers the dialogue there. Like do we need that? Like it's very specific notes. But I mean, what do you think about this approach from James Gunn? Clearly,
awesome.
he's very much in control of this. Is not passing it off to a trailer making company. For example, it's
Right.
he's doing it himself.
Because the last time DC did that, we got Suicide Squad. So whoopsie daisies. Let's not.
And then
do
they
that
recut
again.
the whole movie. They were like, "Why didn't you guys cut the whole thing?" Like it's so yeah. I mean, I'm happy to see this. I personally am excited for the trailer when that will come out. I mean, we're still sort of speculating it will be in a couple of weeks when Mufasa comes out, but we shall see. The poster does look amazing, by the way, Caleb. It does. Now we gotta get into your fan comments, guys. So before we finish up, that's the last thing we do before we wrap up for the night, and then we'll be back tomorrow for Thanksgiving. You have another episode going up, so you guys can definitely tune back in for that. But before we finish up, we have a few comments from yesterday's video. Let's dive into those. So we're gonna start off with K-Lab. This is going back to actually the Batman 2 story, and he's saying you can't delay something that doesn't have a release date. And I believe I've responded to this in the thread on the video, but I wanted to kind of go through this quickly with you, John. You went over and did some research for us, and so Right now, the official release date for the Batman Part 2 or Batman 2, however, whatever the title might be, is October 2nd, 2026. Which, if you look at the first the Batman, it came out on March 4th, 2022. So we were talking about it earlier. It's almost literally 4.5 years later that the sequel will come out. Now, as far as when that happened and how we know the date, we know that originally the movie was gonna come out in 2025. It was gonna be October 3rd, 2025, and then they delayed it by a year, pushing it to October 6th, 2026. So it will have been, like we said, like pretty much 4.5 years since the first movie came out. So pretty much, yeah, almost 5 years, let's call it, since the first film, which is a pretty big difference. But just to confirm and answer your question, Caleb, the movie does have an official release date. It is October 6th, 2026. But I just wanted to clarify that real quick. Now, with that said, let's keep the ball going here. Buster Barnes, you left us a comment. You said, gotta agree with John on the Ra's al Ghul pronunciation. Sounds cooler, and that's how they say it, or I guess I think he meant to say Ra's al Ghul. And he's, that's the way they say it in the animated series and the Arkham games, which is what you pointed out to me, John. I still would like to think that Ra's al Ghul sounds cool, and I think I come at it from the perspective of, in my native language, Urdu, like Raz is like another word for secret. That's literally what it translates to, and like you could say it in an intimidating way. I feel like you can't really say Raish in a way that's so intimidating. Like Raz can be like some badass dude who can kick your ass. But that's my opinion. I don't know. I know that you're on the other side of this. But
I don't know, like I feel like the long A like I don't know, just like that's cool to me, sounds badass.
It's fair. I personally, I like I said, it's a preference thing. I know a lot of you guys in the chat probably land on John's side, but some of you might not. Like I personally prefer Ra's al Ghul, but I thought that was a fun one to kind of bring up. Buster Barnes was like, "No, Dan, us white guys are the experts on how to pronounce foreign names," and then he laughs. He's being facetious. Don't go after Buster in the chat, please. So, by the way, the Trunks versus No Trunks Superman chat is also happening right now. So we'll see how that looks when the movie trailer comes out, by the way. Ron's saying, by the way, Dan, did you know in the Batman Begins, Bruce has his league training in Pakistan? Does he? Is that where they end up? I don't remember them actually specifying a location. Was that meant to be Pakistan, like the Himalayas? Like I mean, it would add up, I suppose. I don't know. Like, was that?
I trained in the
mountains. Caleb is like, Matt Reeves would think Ra's al Ghul. I'm gonna put this comment up on the screen because I feel like Caleb spelled it wrong on purpose. Hold on. I think this is hilarious. I'm sure you saw the comment too. This is just great.
Yeah.
But Ra's al Ghul could be a comic book, two comic book, and call him John Doe. Probably not John Doe, but maybe.
Oh, hey, else. Lenny coming in at the very end. Hello.
Oh, hi, Lenny. I know you probably don't celebrate Thanksgiving, but happy Thanksgiving from America, from across the pond. Hello. But dude, no, you're right, Ron. By the way, good point. Because you know what? Okay, I'm gonna put this up because I have to tell this story. And I've always said this as much.
The stream hasn't gone on long enough, so why don't you fucking tell another story?
I'll keep this one short, but I think this is, since you're having a conversation about the Batman Begins. And by the way, I hated, the other thing I hated in the Arrowverse was how they pronounced Nanda Parbat. They were like Nanda Parbat. It's the most fucking white way in which you can fucking pronounce it, because it's Nanda Parbat. That's what it is. That's how you pronounce it. It's Nanda Parbat. And it is in the northern Himalayas, where Pakistan and India sort of meet. It's mentioned in the movie, and yes, that is in Pakistan. In fact, I have visited there, and my dad has been there several times. It's beautiful.
Aren't you so
cold.
fucking cool?
The water is, crystal clear, and it's a fun part of the country to be in.
And that's where Batman trained in the mountains.
it is in the mountains. You do see glaciers, and yes, Nanda Parbat.
I trained in the mountains.
Yes. So good shout from Ron.
What are you doing with the science stuff? I'm doing forensics just to figure out where the Joker is.
Now Ron, I don't know. I can't divulge all my secrets, but you're welcome to engage me in hand-to-hand combat sometime, and then we shall find out. Lenny's like, what has Lenny gotten into? Cobblepot more like Cobb. Boo, give the food back to the indigenous people. Said, okay. Well, you know what? I don't think most people celebrate Thanksgiving for those reasons. It's more just it's basically, you know, Thanksgiving in the U.S. at this point is just a means and a time of the year when you get to, you know, be together with your family.
What's real is family.
Yep, exactly. That's what's real, and that's what Thanksgiving is about, Lenny. But we have one last comment, and this one comes in from Miraculous, who I believe is still in the chat. So Miraculous, you were commenting on the Steve Agee story. You said, sure, Agee is repeating the studio line here, but that's because it's just true. Waller is still in active development and hasn't been canceled, so they're obviously still writing it. We know it was already moved to after Peacemaker season 2, but beyond that, it was never given a release date, so you can't really say it's been delayed. It's just taking some time, you know, which is true, right, John? I think that is pretty much exactly. I think we sort of addressed it as much. Like, yes, we don't have a release date for it. We were just wondering though, where would it land now, considering how not far along it is. Like, we were speculating whether it would be 2026, 2027, like where would we see the show? Because again, like Viola Davis also has a busy schedule, and
Yeah.
this is a show that will eventually has to go into production. So we were wondering if like maybe this could be the TV show that we get in 2026, like alongside the Batman Part 2. You know, that could be it. But great question though. Yeah. Bale's Batman voice is actually so bad it's good. I agree with you, Buster. I think Bale's Batman voice is almost, to me, it's really the motivation behind it works. Although he almost killed himself, like he almost destroyed his own voice box.
I think
trying
in
to
the
do
later
it,
movies,
so,
like they had to use a special machine to
yeah,
mimic the accent so he didn't fucking blow his voice out. Because I think in
exactly.
Batman
Yeah,
Begins, it was more subtle, and then Dark Knight was, I have throat cancer, and then you have that, and then I think in Dark Knight Rises they had to
tone it
do
down.
something with the voice so that
Yeah.
he didn't fucking just destroy it.
I do remember like the one favorite line that I have from The Dark Knight Rises is like, you don't owe them anything. Just come with me. He's like, you've given them like Catwoman is saying. He's like, not everything. Not yet. And he's like, literally, it's like the shot is looking up at him, and the way he says it is like his face is facing up. He's like, not everything. Not yet. Like even though I'm exaggerating, but it's funny, but it's also very well written. I feel like, Caleb, we should do like an epic rap battles of history where it's Batman, the Bale Batman voice versus the Jared Joker voice. Like, and who wins? You decide. Like, I want one of those. That would be great. I don't think they touch that so much because it's all copyrighted stuff, so they do historical figures more, or like real people rather than characters. But I would love that crossover. Um, John's making the Batman focus face. It's the final Dark Knight monologue to Jim where his voice goes crazy. You mean in the Dark Knight? Like, he's like, 'cause I can take it. I am whatever Gotham needs me to be. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, where's the trigger? Yeah, that was hard.
Where's the trigger?
Yes, his voice cracks. I remember his voice cracks, which I think they decided to keep because they're like, no shit, that dude just fought that guy, and then he gets stabbed in the side. I'm like, okay, I get it, I get it. But you know what? I'm from a generation that grew up loving the Dark Knight.
Where's the trigger?
If we can get Pete Holmes on this show sometime, that would be amazing.
Oh my
I would
God,
just
that
love
would
it.
be
We
the
go
greatest.
live on a show, and joining me today we have Batman, and there he is sitting in his costume on the side. That would be fun. So but we gotta figure that out. Maybe that's a goal. That's a New Year's resolution. Caleb is like, Jared Leto's Joker laugh is just a door creaking. And now we're just getting quotes in the chat from Bale's Batman. You know what? I'm sure that he has done a video where Christian Bale like read people's comments in his Batman voice, like in Wired or whatever YouTube channel does that. So, Lenny, you hurt Bane's feelings, says Ron. What did Lenny say? I dislike Dark
She
Knight Rises.
didn't like Dark
Come
Knight
on,
Rises.
come on. I
It's
was
the
born in
weakest
the
of the
dock.
three. It's the weakest of the
It's-
three, but it's not bad.
It's I think it's pretty level with Batman Begins in my opinion, but it's certainly the largest scope and scale. But I do love Bane. I personally love Bane's portrayal. It's like, I was born in the dark. I was molded by it. By the time I saw the light,
Bane gets all drugged up on Bane juice. I
It
don't
was
care.
blinding.
That's the character, though. I'm confused.
It is exactly the character. Do you not remember Batman and Robin? I mean, or have you purged that out of your mind?
The whole character is like he's a big, strong guy who
Exactly.
gets venom pumped into his veins, and then he becomes even bigger and crazier.
Yeah.
Like, that's the thing.
Well, guys, I think with that we're gonna call it a night. And or if you're watching this in the daytime, like it's 6 a.m. for Buster Barnes, we're gonna call it a morning. We hope that you can go ahead and have a fantastic day ahead or night ahead, and then come back tomorrow. It is Thanksgiving in the U.S., so we'll be here with a special. I think we are doing a bit of a fan casting, and then we do have some other news elements that we will probably drop in there, as we always like to do. And then on Friday we're back, and then we'll have Liz joining us again as well to end the week on DCU Daily. Of course, it's Black Friday, so we hope you go out there and find the best deals out. I think for us, we are one of the best deals out there because we didn't even cost you anything. You can just for free hit the subscribe button.
Maybe a like, maybe a comment, maybe a subscription, maybe a ring the bell so you know when we go live.
It doesn't cost you a penny. It's probably the best deal you're gonna get this Black Friday, if we're being honest. And you love us, we love you, we're thankful for you guys.
In fact, the Black Friday deal is so good, we're gonna give you money.
Pretty much. He's like, no, Dan, don't remind me. I don't know if you're talking about Bane. Ron.
I think he's talking about Batman and Robin.
Bad credit card. Oh, Batman. Dude, it's a guilty pleasure. I love it. I love Batman and Robin. It's so bad it's good. It's like, where's the Iceman? Maybe he's hibernating.
I love the Watcher's comment. Bane, I was born in the dark, molded by it. I hugged it and kissed it, and the light was just there for some reason. Ignored it.
It just went from like the Dark Knight Rises into the Harley Quinn show.
I appreciate that.
That's hilarious. Okay. The love, the creativity, bring it back with you guys tomorrow because it's, you know what? And it's been a great year and we love that you guys are here with us. And we are thankful for you and we appreciate you. Lenny, thanks for joining us. It was, I know you joined a little late, but be kind and rewind. And we talked about so much today, a lot of news. James Gunn was literally on Threads talking to people while we were live, so we picked out a few things that he has literally said within the last hour while we have been live on the show. So we did talk about the poster, we talked about the trailer coming up, all the other stuff. Do you feel in charge? Sorry, you do it. I'm not gonna cover you. Well,
do you feel in charge?
The fans, you have fans in the chat of your voice. Miraculous loves it. He's like, oh my god, your Bane voice. Yeah, it's
I was born in the dark, molded by it. I did not see the light until I was only just a man. I don't know the words though.
So. I was only just a man, and by the time I saw the light, it was nothing but blinding. And then he just grabs him he chokes. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. I know those Nolan movies by heart, but well, you know what? Go watch the Dark Knight trilogy back because it is still probably the greatest single superhero movie trilogy of all time, in my opinion, at least. And if you don't like it, if to each their own, maybe you can go watch the Batman. You can look forward to watching the trailer for Superman, which just gonna throw it out there. Think on this until we're back tomorrow and the day after. Thanksgiving is a big day for football. There's a lot of NFL games on. I'm just saying.
I mean, if you're a Detroit Lions fan, maybe, but
the Cowboys game always gets a big ratings.
Ew.
Maybe there's a teaser trailer that gets dumped in there somewhere, and not dumped, but dropped, and we get a first sneak peek, and then we get to see the full trailer behind, let's say, Mufasa in a movie theater before it goes on YouTube. I'm just putting it out there. You guys speculate on that, and we'll talk to you about it either tomorrow or the day after if you remember to talk about it. If it even happens, we'll see. But happy Thanksgiving, and we hope that you get to enjoy the time with your family. If you don't celebrate Thanksgiving, then happy Thursday. It's almost Friday. Thank God it's almost Friday.
And it'll be a
TGIAF.
week away from Creature Commandos.
Creature Commandos. We'll be here reviewing it each and every week, a double episode review. Then we'll review every episode after that. And then, before you know it, we're in the new year and the summer of Superman is coming our way. So thanks again for joining us tonight. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell. For John and I, thank you for watching. We will see you next time on DCU Daily.